Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in here to Murder Church on a Tuesday night, episode 25. I didn't change that thumbnail. Hold on, I'll do that in real time. I just now downloaded it, but forgot to do it right there. Boom! Episode 25, the Phil Spector Hollywood murder trial. Lana Clarkson was killed by Phil Spector in his Hollywood castle, in his mansion, in 2003. This trial is from 2007. This is the first Phil Spector trial, and we're deep. Dr. Pena is on the stand, and welcome in here. This is part 9 of Dr. Louis Pena's testimony of 16 parts. We will be watching the rest of him for probably maybe even a few more weeks. But drop your Dr. Pena emojis out there, hit the like, share it out on X, coming at you.
Let's rock.
Whoa, what's up everybody? What's happening here this evening on a Tuesday night? I've got a hot dog in me. I've got some sweet potato fries in me. Had a shower. It's been a day, as I was saying in the Discord there. Welcome in here. What's going on? Episode 25, if you can believe it or not. This is a long trial. This is season 4 of Murder Church, the Phil Spector Hollywood murder trial. Everyone coming in here, let me first of all get this chat in here so we can talk properly, the way I like to do it on this show anyways, because you guys are as much as a part of this show as I am, I believe. Drew Gambino, there's the bells from Pammy. Thanks for not letting me forget. Holy shit, Drew Gambino coming through here. Plain Mary Jane's been waiting for this all day. Oasis Cat coming through here. Miss Dina with Dr. Pena in the chat. Those emojis ready to rock and roll. Bassett Page, see ya. Hello. Seeking Justice coming through here. Dizzy in the house. Afton coming through as well. Mia Beto hanging and banging. What's going on, everybody? RX Girls in here also. Whoa, got a full house. Oh, Kelly Bobelli did not want to be left out. What's up? We ain't messing around, baby. Let me get them bells going first of all. That's how you truly start Murder Church. Right here. Only on YouTube. We are still in the middle of, about the middle, maybe a little bit more. Part 9 of Dr. Louis Pena's testimony. Still going forth. Being the defense attorney that has questioned him is Christopher Plord. I had to get with Dizzy. I'm not even going to sit here. I could sit here, bounce out that name like I did and ask Dizzy. I did. Ask Dizzy right before this went live. I was like, what's this dude's name? I cannot remember. So she helped me out there. The will is in play here tonight, and we're going to see how far we get here. This first video, part 9, is an hour and 30, so that may be the only one we get to here tonight, but we'll see. Still see some people coming through the door. What's going on, everybody? Where's the pickles? Chaos. Oh, it's hard to even say it after reading it. But the will is in play, so any supers, any memberships that are gifted out, anything that comes through the Cash App, the pinned message in the chat there is for Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. Anything that comes through there, I'll keep a check on. You can get on the will to win a shirt. Of course, new merch is happening. Some shirts did go out or got ordered today and should be going out this week. And then I sent a few more messages out to some folks. I still need some more information from some people as well. I'm going to give it just a little bit of time or we will move on down the list. But yeah, everyone, let's go. Let's jump on in here and start it out. And those bells did go. This is all playing, right? It's not. Hold on, son of a bitch. I forgot that I had to reset this. Let me redo that. I'm over here talking like there's bells streaming, and there's no fucking bells going whatsoever. Hold on. It isn't even up in here. Oh, whoa. We're having a meltdown. We're having a crisis situation right now. Hold on. Here we go. Got to wake her up. My bad, guys. That is my bad. So here is how we properly start Murder Church. The bells. Come a little louder. Boom! Thunderous India souls. Wake 'em up here at Murder Church, huh? What are we doing?
Son of a bitch!
Not messing around. That's what we're doing. So we're doing it now. Now we are officially hanging and banging, baby. Let's go. Woo! I know. I messed up there. I was like, wait a minute. Let's make sure. I had to reset my entire computer before we started rocking today. But yeah, one thing I did want to announce here, Thursday show this week, Dan, should be on here, should be 9 normal time, but Feral Friday this week will be a little bit later this week. It'll be more like 10 p.m. Eastern time. Jay's got a special broadcast that night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, so he'll be going on about 9 and then letting some folks know about Feral Friday, and we'll be going a little bit later that evening. But yeah, let's get in here. Let's jump in here and get to going with our friend, Dr. Pena. Make sure the sound is correct. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Still doing this right now because my eye's still a little bit wonky and still feeling a little bit. So like this, I can have a little bit less light on me. For the green screen, I need more light. So we're going to see how it rolls.
All right. On the record, the jurors, the alternates are not present, along with the witness, still under oath, and you may proceed whenever you're ready.
And you know how we do this, son of a bitch. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Good morning, Dr. Pena. I wanted to quickly go back to your examination of the clothing for Lana Clarkson. We talked about the pantyhose, and then you looked at the other clothing and examined it closely, similar to what you did with the pantyhose. Is that correct?
Yes.
And without getting into the details, the undergarments of Ms. Clarkson, she had some on, I take it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you examine those for any
get
rips
in
or
here.
tear?
Getting rated right now by Hella Stream. Thank you so much, Hella, for sending those folks over. Appreciate it. And Dolly, get the hell in here. Hell yeah. Hell shit yeah. Oh yeah, get in here, everybody. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Hella. That's awesome.
Errors or defects?
We're just getting
that
started
would
up. That's
suggest that
perfect
there was
timing.
a struggle, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, and what was your conclusion in that regard?
They were negative.
Okay, and did you put that in your report that they were negative?
I just described the clothing, but from my experience in my past reports, it's unremarkable, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and you did you use that term unremarkable, or you just described the clothing?
Just described it.
Okay, and then we talked about the jackets that she was wearing, and you didn't see any defects in the jacket other than the blood on it and things like that we've already talked about, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then I take it she had a pair of shoes on, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and did you examine the shoes?
Yes.
Real quick, Afton Forid and Miss Dina, thank you both so much for that share on the Twitter, on the X Machine. Appreciate that.
Okay, and what was your reason
Also,
for...
earlier we had some shares as well. Dizzy shared out. Afton shared earlier as well. That's a double share from Afton. Hell yeah. True Crime Watcher Lexi the Law Nerd, thank you very much. Missy Mayhem coming the fuck through. And Brooklyn, Mod Brooklyn, thank you all so much.
Examining the shoes.
Showing the
Looking
love.
for tears and any defects, perhaps ballistic findings, and I saw nothing, or blood, for instance.
Okay.
I saw nothing.
Okay,
Crack it in
and
the
they were
house.
Black shoes. Could you see any blood spots or spatters on it at all, or?
I didn't examine that carefully.
Okay. So there could have been, and you just didn't. That wasn't the purpose of your exam, I take it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, at the scene, when you saw the shoes, did you see that there was some type of a white object on the side of one of her shoes?
I did not see that.
Okay. Now,
All right.
I want to direct your attention
With the slowest line of questioning
to
in the history of mankind again.
April the 7th of 2003.
Florid.
Had a meeting with Dr.
Plorid. Doesn't he look like his fucking last name is Plorid?
Lynn Harold, and I'm going to get an exhibit.
As he unzipped his
regarding
pants
that
right
in a
here.
moment.
How's that zipping
I
going?
have a note regarding that meeting.
Don't forget
Do you
we
get a chance to
always
find
have
that?
the live
I've got an extra copy of it.
shot
if
of
you'd like.
Phil.
That'd be great.
Okay, I'll do that. May I approach him?
Yes.
Always ready to go. Creepy son of a bitch.
There you go.
Thanks. Okay.
Now, without going through all the exact questions about all your notes that are in the file, is this another note that's dated April the 7th of 2004 that you created in the same manner and fashion as the other notes that we talked about yesterday and we've marked as exhibits?
Yes.
Okay. Would ask that these be marked next in order.
Triple F.
Dr. Pena, I'm going to have this put on the board. And,
Phil in the
essentially,
house. What's
Dr.
up,
Pena,
dude?
You had a meeting with Dr. Harold, and
Burns
would
in
it be
the
correct
house.
that you
Still
were
got 'em flowing through.
doing work on this case as of April the 7th of 2004?
Actually, not.
Okay. Was this a meeting about some lost evidence?
This is a meeting about the lost tooth that I described for you yesterday, the jurors.
Okay, and were there some other meetings that occurred before this where you had meetings with everybody in your office?
I'm trying real hard right now not to zone out because Sunday was fucking brutal, man. Yeah, he's double asking questions, if not triple asking questions. I don't know if Alan Jackson in the prosecution side has just zoned out as well and they're just letting this go, but good Lord. Like at the end of Sunday's episode, and I'm not sure if this is another day, if this is just later in the day. I think his suit looks a little bit different actually from that tie. But Jackson started finally, like quipping up a little bit. But Jesus Christ, it's absolutely brutal.
Basically, there was some type of an investigation about this tooth. Is that correct?
Yes.
And apparently Dr. Lynn Harold was involved in that.
It's
to some extent,
fucking
is that correct?
16 parts.
Okay, so,
this guy's on the stand,
when you
guys.
talked to her, did she basically interview
part
you
is an
about
hour
your
plus.
role or knowledge about what happened
It's
with reference to
madness.
this lost piece of evidence?
On April
Free
7th,
this man.
that's this note. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Dr. Pena, with reference to your opinion, we talked a little bit yesterday about your typed up opinion, and we had that marked as an exhibit. I believe it was exhibit CCC. And if we could have that exhibit put on the board.
Hit that thumb, guys. Yeah. Appreciate that. That does help us out.
And this is your final opinion that you put in your autopsy report that was essentially finalized in September of 2003. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you have a note in your file, again, on one of your standard form worksheet 42 forms regarding your opinion that's dated the 29th of July
Oh
of
my
2003.
God, it's so brutal.
Yes.
And do you have that before you?
The handwritten one?
Correct.
I have it somewhere, but I don't have it. I can't find it here with me at this moment.
Okay.
I'm not being
Same
dramatic.
questions
like-
with regard to that particular note. That was basically you writing out in longhand your opinions and conclusions, and that was part of your file record because you basically asked that be typed up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Could we have this marked next in order?
That would be triple G.
Thank you. And
Triple G.
Dr. Pena, I'm showing you
That's
on
what they call me.
a board here what's been marked Exhibit Triple G. Do you recognize that from where you sit?
Yes.
Okay, and basically, is this the exact same thing as Triple C, only it's dated the 29th of July of 2003?
That's correct.
Okay, so there wouldn't be any differences between the two. Basically, you proofread your notes and compared them to the original report, and it's exactly the same. Is that true?
That's correct.
So would it be correct that your final opinion, the one that's typed up, that we showed you in the previous exhibit, essentially you came to those opinions and conclusions as of the 29th of July of 2003. Is that true?
That's correct.
Now, Dr. Pena, we talked yesterday about your looking into the history of Lana Clarkson, and I wanted to, follow up with that with some additional questions. Did you or your office ever seek to obtain any type of records, medical type records, to get information regarding Ms. Clarkson's history?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you go about doing that?
We'll indirectly what's called subpoena records through contacts from the family, usually of her primary care doctor, for instance, any other doctors that might have known her during a certain time frame, and that we did.
Okay, so when you say you would use help get family help, how would you do? Would you ask them to get releases, something like that?
Basically, yes.
Okay, and then get information as to what doctor she might have gone to, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so how many different doctors were you able to sort out and get records from, if any?
There'd be three.
Okay, and what time periods did they come about?
About
Welcome in, Sarah
maybe a
and Simi.
couple weeks
Get in
up to
here.
Maybe a month after.
You are forgiven, Simi.
The autopsy.
Okay, and have you gotten any additional
My child, you are forgiven.
records since then?
Yes.
Okay, when did you get the additional records?
Just a
About
jib.
maybe a couple months before this trial started,
Okay, and how did that come about, that you got those records?
through the district attorney's office.
Okay, and what records did you get recently?
I received the records from her neurologist. I'll just keep it very broad for you, and some other internal medicine specialists, internal medicine doctors she was seeing through the SAG program. And also, I'm trying to remember, then I received later some more material, mainly from chiropractic examinations, et cetera. And those are the main ones.
Okay. Did you, in the course of getting some of her records, did any of the records that you originally obtained from any of her doctors include sort of a patient history that was filled out by Lana Clarkson?
Yes.
Okay, and Your Honor, can I mark next in order a patient history that has a date of 6/28/01?
Yeah, I bet the jury really likes this guy.
Triple H.
Thank you. Dr. Pena, I'm going to show on the board the first page of one of the patient histories, or a patient history document. It starts at discovery page 7957. It's an 8-page document marked
Indeed, what's up?
HHH.
Yeah, I just need to change the name of this show. It's no longer Murder Church. Now it's Dr. Pena's Church. Now we praise this man.
Ask if you recognize this document. I'll show it to
He's
you
a pleasant
as they're putting it up.
doctor, but I mean, he's getting beat to death here.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure that this dude has even more, decent probing questions that could get somewhere, but we're not going to get there because he just has to ask the same question over and over, or in a slightly different manner, or I don't even know what's happening here. I don't understand.
Well, that's getting put up on the screen,
we need
Doctor.
the
Can you explain
details,
to the
but-
jury what a patient history, how that is done in relationship to medical treatment? You're familiar with that, I take it.
Yes.
Zone it in here.
A patient goes to a
how
doctor. We've
pissed
all
off
done
I
this. Let's say it's your first time visit. You fill out what's
Oh,
called a
hell
patient
yeah.
profile.
Nice.
They want to know.
Yeah, when shirts ship, guys, they land pretty quick. Like when you purchase them, they land quick.
Of course, your name, address, where you live, your occupation,
Whoa.
and just general information, next of kin, spouse, etc., if appropriate. The next page you turn over, it'll start getting into, why you're here today, your first visit. And in general, you've all experienced this, we all, myself included, there's check boxes. It goes through all of your systems, including your nervous system, beginning with your head, heart, lungs, etc., urinary problems, bladder problems, and you check the box yes or no. It has also area, of course, for psych history, etc. That's another box. Then it goes on to bottom there, describe any complaints, any past drug use, etc., tobacco use. So it's a pretty thorough, detailed history, but they expect the patient to fill that out, and that's what's important. And that's what I observed Ms. Clarkson to do on a number of occasions, because she sought different doctors for different complaints, which is normal.
Would it also include what type of medication somebody might be taking?
Yes.
And basically explain that, because basically when you go to a new doctor and you fill out one of these forms, it tells you that.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at HHH, this is the first page of it. This is the first page of a multi-part document, and this is one of the records that your office obtained back in 2003. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now we look at it identifies Ms. Clarkson, and then on the second page, it gives some information regarding history. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and there's a portion that talks about chronic problems, and if we could have that particular portion highlighted. Okay, and it talks about headaches, and it looks like it has a date of 6/28/01, and that's the date of this document, essentially. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it talks about severe constant headaches. And my question is that were there other records that correlated to this?
That is correct. There
Okay, and when I use that term correlated, meaning that this is not just an isolated reference to it with this record, it kind of permeated all the records in her medical history, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this wasn't just a severe headache on a particular day or week, this was a kind of a constant problem that you saw that mentioned in all the medical records?
That's correct.
Okay, and from what you could determine, Dr. Pena, give us an idea of what the issue was with the headaches. In other words, were they like, I get them once a day, twice a day? Characterize them and give us some understanding as to what the complaint was.
Just real briefly, abstracting from the medical records that I reviewed, they were, it kind of waxed.
Shit, starting out this. Well, actually, we're on the second name of the will. It got started on Sunday. Dinah. Actually, I think didn't Dinah win? I think she won Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she did. And she started out the next will, but yeah, right now, coming the fuck through. Boom. Pammy, and that's throwing it up right now back at me. That's awesome. $2.99 coming through. Thank you so much. Second name on the will tonight. Boom. Thank you.
In a way, in other words, they come and they go. Sometimes they were more painful than other times. Constant would be a good term to use. When they actually they'd get them, she'd get them, they'd be pretty intense. And she attributed them actually to perhaps from her stunt work that she used to do. That's one of her notes I remember reading. I don't know what kind of work she did, to be honest with you. Whatever stunts means, that's what she attributed it to. Or perhaps even a car accident. I don't know. That's one of the neurologists may have commented on. They're trying to look into different aspects of what could have caused the headache. Because they went on for a number of years. Now, how long? That's a tough one to answer. It could go back maybe 5, maybe 10 years from that 2000.
Side coming through also.
Date back, if you backtrack a little bit. Maybe even longer, but I'm not quite sure. Even stress she even puts down may have caused these, or a combination of factors. It's called multifactorial. Doctors will use that term sometime. And she was taking medication, several medications for them, and she'd bump them up sometimes, the medications, because the headaches got intense, and she'd try to reduce it too. So she was very careful with the medication use.
Headaches,
and in fact, in some of her records, she'd even indicate she does not like to take medications so much. She had problems with drug use as a youth growing up, and she knows that. So she was very cautious about her medication use, so that's important to note. And that's what I abstracted from that.
Okay. You mentioned she had drug problems as a youth. Where did you get that information from?
That was one of her questionnaires that she filled out from one of the doctors from 2002, that I recall. Okay. But that was when she was real young.
Okay, and now we're going to go to the next page of this multi-page document. And this is the page.
Good to see the pews filling up tonight here at the church.
That asks for basically current drug usage or chronic, or we call it says, can't hardly read it. That says chronic medications or.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, why don't we highlight that? I want to, and this is as of this particular date, apparently. Is that true?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, the first one, do you know how to pronounce that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's a barbiturate type medication. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, doctor, did you ever get any prescription records as part of the records that were subpoenaed to court and eventually given to you by the district attorney's office after we subpoenaed them?
Yes.
Okay, so you were able to go back and correlate how much and when various prescriptions
that's
were
all
given.
that's happening here. Attempting
yes, I
to
was able to review it.
Okay, and then these are some other prescriptions that she had. Is that correct?
Yes.
And right, basically her complaint for this particular visit was she was having really severe headache problems, and she says she's taking a lot of this medication due to the severity of the headaches. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, now if we could go to the, hold on just a second. Now, this is a continuation of
never
this,
know
and it
now.
gives sort of a family history, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
How wild
and
it might
tells
get
what her
on
chief
Publicly
complaint
Buzzed.
is and essentially why
Go
she's
from
there.
0
Is that
to
true?
100 really
Yes.
quick.
Okay, it gives her age as 39 years old, and it refers to a Dr. Mark Saginor, Saginor. Did you ever get any records from Dr. Saginor in your review of this case?
No.
Else.
Okay, and do you know what kind of a
Thanks
doctor he
everyone for
is?
coming through tonight.
You can ask if he knows.
Yeah, I asked if he knows.
All right, overruled.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Next page. This page is sort of a history questionnaire, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so basically it gets into just the general stuff that doctors ask when you go to see them to kind of get into the issues and so forth. Is that true?
That's correct.
Is this one of the pages that it basically talks about her drug history that you were just referring to in your answer?
That's correct.
Okay, if we could have that highlighted a little bit. And basically,
I'm going to object at this point, Your Honor. This appears to be completely irrelevant with regard to what this witness took into consideration in coming to his opinions. I mean, the court can see what's being highlighted on the overhead.
Okay. Approach the bench.
okay.
Approach.
Take it down. The jury is to disregard anything they saw on the board.
Dr. Pena, on that same page, at the bottom of the page, it talks about pertinent
He's
information
like, I'm just going to
regarding
restart.
headaches. It says dealing with abusive headaches on a 24-hour basis. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's part of the record that we were just looking at. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it talked about how otherwise she was healthy and that type of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually it says I'm healthy, exercise, I'm happy, positive, and successful.
Okay, and that's sort of where you're gleaning your information that she had a positive outlook on life and things of that nature. Is that true?
That's one of about 4 notes that I remember seeing to doctors that she actually expresses that.
Okay, and now going to the next page, and I won't put it on the board, but it talks about the current problem, and it says headaches bad. Is that correct with some exclamation points? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and then it indicates that she's taking this drug Fiorinol, quite a lot of it at the time. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then going to the
I
next
believe
page
that's
of the
where
document,
we're at.
it talks about the frequency of the headaches. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and basically that's
I
sort
feel like
of
that's a
thing
pretty
where
hard thing
the
to make
patient is asked
anyone,
to check.
like a jury or a juror, believe. Even one. Yeah, doing it with a stranger, like that's so foreign. No, that's insane.
certain boxes.
After hearing the testimony from the other, I'm doing this from juror's perspective currently, but after hearing all the testimony from the other ladies that he's been with, I mean, was it 4 or 5? I actually lost count. That was in the same predicament and ended up with a gun in their face. And we know how Lana Clarkson died, so...
Is that true?
Yes.
And
Come on now.
With reference to the boxes that she checked, she talks about ringing in the ears and a couple of other minor complaints, but when it comes to the frequent headaches, she puts 4 check marks. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is it also correct that she doesn't really, mention anything that significant on that particular page other than that?
I agree.
Okay. Now, the next page, she's essentially, and this is all presumably in her own handwriting. Is that true, Dr. Pena?
Yes.
And with reference to Ms. Clarkson, is there anything remarkable about what she puts in that particular page?
On the systems?
Right. What
affected?
systems are affected by her headaches and so forth?
No.
Does she say or check the boxes that basically she's fatigued by that?
I'm sorry, you're correct. Yeah, there's some boxes checked. For instance, like smoke and fumes will bother in relation to perhaps these headaches. Paints, sprays, fatigue, getting tired, exertion, and emotions.
And what is meant by emotions, if you know?
If he's
Is there's any time that I would like to see a jury had been during this one, which, I mean, there's been tons of times, of course, but during this one, particularly because of some of the questions that have come down for multiple people from these defense dudes. Not necessarily just Plord here. I think I'm saying his name correctly, probably not, but I mean, Rosin particularly is the grossest to me. Excuse me. I just hate his tone and his manner.
No.
Okay, in the next page that's marked, it talks about a number of other things, and is there a reference to bruising at all in that particular document?
Yes.
And what is the reference to bruising?
It's under the broad area called connective tissue, which is our soft tissue in our body, and she puts 3 check marks under bruises easily.
Okay, and when she typically has a minor complaint, she puts 1 check mark. Is that correct?
Objection, that would call for speculation.
Okay. On most of the things that are asked about, for example, she puts lack of concentration, she puts a check mark. Is that correct?
Yes.
Fatigueness, she puts a check mark. Is that correct?
Yes.
Numbness, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, 1 check mark. Lack of concentration, 1 check mark. Is that correct?
Yes.
Lack of memory, 1 check mark. Is that correct?
Correct.
Fatigue and sleeping difficulties, 1 check mark each. Correct?
Let's see. I don't see that. I see it. Yes.
Okay, and basically for bruises easily, she puts 3 check marks. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, I add on the other, just briefly, so for the juror's education, she does not check hopeless outlook, sexual difficulties, considered suicide, does not check, desired psychiatric help. Ms. Clarkson does not check.
And is it correct, doctor, that it was your understanding from looking at the records that your office collected
Super interesting.
that she had no psychiatric history?
From the time frame that I saw, there was nothing
Shit,
significant.
Jersey Jen getting on the wheel, baby. $5. Let's do it. Hell yeah. Just wanted to show some love to Publicly Buzzed and get on that wheel. Hell yeah. And then I saw while we're paused here for just a moment, I do not mind to throw another dose of bells out there. Okay, Simi? Huh? I don't mind to do that. The bells are ringing. Church is in session. They're probably asking themselves out on the street corner, whoa, why are they ringing them again? What's going on in there? It must be a real party, and they would be damn straight.
No indication. That's correct.
Okay, when you say
Thank you so
nothing
much.
significant,
Jersey Jen,
was there
get you on the
something
wheel.
you found that was there but not significant?
Yes.
Okay, what was that?
I saw a note, and I couldn't quite figure this out. It's actually a computerized printout from 1994, which is 9 years before her death. She saw, I don't know who she saw, so I tried to look up that
Dude,
name.
I was thinking the same thing on that wild side. Like, he went pretty deep, and they did let it happen, right?
On the note, on the computerized printed out note from United Behavioral Care, which part of her SAG program would allow her to use, if I'm not mistaken. She saw...
Oh, shit, is it sounding kind of weird? Let me see if I can get a fix going. Hold on. Boom.
Either a psychologist or perhaps a social worker.
Your Honor, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That's
You heard
okay.
the bells. They all heard the bells, baby.
If I'm on
Cat
the
Girl
same
just came in
page,
because she's
so
in the
to speak,
street.
with the witness.
I'm late.
My objection
The
would be
bells.
relevance and remoteness to time. Although he hasn't finished his answer, I believe I know what he's talking about. Where's that go?
Like the bells
If we
weren't
may
ringing?
approach, I don't want to.
You didn't hear 'em again?
Burn out the cards, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Are you kidding?
You could go ahead and finish your answer.
What? How did that happen? I was just... Oh, my God. I'm over here... so excited about these bells. And no one can even hear them. Oh, my Lord. So everybody in the street heard nothing. One more time. So earlier I'd had to fix it. I think it's because I was on the other screen. It was just me. And now that I'm on this screen with the internet. Hold on. There we go. Let's get the bells going. Dear God. My Lord. I'm like, wait, what? I see people in the chat. You're not sure what's going on. Woo! Yeah, I did have to restart everything earlier, so that is exactly what happened. Murder Church still in session. Now they're in the. Now they know it's a party. Now they know. All right, everything I said earlier. Now, okay.
Dr. Pena.
Sure.
And also,
I'm sober enough to know what I'm doing, and I'm drunk enough to really enjoy doing it.
At that time, again, I don't know the type of therapist, whether it be a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Gus,
But
what's
it's an important
up?
point to note here. Ms. Clarkson, when it appeared to be when she wanted to see
Got 'em
someone for
now,
help,
baby.
for instance, she had some asthma issues, she'd go to the doctor and tell him, I've got a problem here. Same with her other medication use. And she was concerned about overuse of the Fiorinol, for example. And they eventually weaned her off that, by the way. That's important. Getting back to Mr. Plurt's question.
no. At the beginning, y'all did hear them. At the beginning, there was bells. I think it's the screens. Like when I switch screens, like to full screen, like this one is somehow. I have to literally like set it up again on the other screen where it's me with the internet. It's silly. It's really goofy. Shiraz with the $20 holler coming through here, baby. We doing it. Now we can hear it all. Now we're hanging and banging. Huh?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
See, I didn't hear that one earlier when I switched over. When I did that. Okay, yeah. Shiraz, thank you so much. Let me get you on this wheel. And she's got a shirt going out, getting ordered tomorrow and going out, I would say, this week. They go out rather quickly when you order them. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so it's going out soon. Let's just say that. But hell yeah, thank you so much. Boom. Appreciate that. Woo!
What they diagnosed her at this time, she had 5 sessions that she was available to use. And she never finished. She only went to one
Hey,
that I
thanks for
could
being
see
here.
on that
Where's the
printout.
pickles?
I looked carefully of the number of sessions they gave her. It says how many used, 0, after the first visit. The diagnosis on the first visit was simply from the Diagnostic Statistic Manual psychiatrists are very familiar with. There's like over 300 codes in there. And everyone in this room, we could find a code for each of us, basically, because from pulling your hair out to scratching your nails excessively, there's a code for everything. Basically, she was diagnosed with what's called adjustment disorder with anxiety. And very simple, what that means is that someone's nervous and jittery, in simple terms. There's another one called adjustment disorder with depression. It has a different code. The code that she was given, again, though, was not with the depression, but with the anxiety, and that's important. She did not have the depression. Her complaint was, at that time, was her father. She didn't have a father, really, a father figure, and that kind of bothered her. Also, she cried a lot. A lot of people do. That's normal. She had maybe some personal
Jersey Jen
social
coming
interactions
through.
that created a lot of anxiety.
Kelly
not
Bobelli
uncommon.
getting gifted up.
No depression.
New member,
I
hell
don't-
yeah.
I don't know about medication
Thank you,
use at that
Jersey
time.
Jen.
That's beyond my scope. But that's basically what this little
Getting back
summation
on his wheel
of this
for a
print-
second
printout
opportunity.
that I saw basically said.
Thank you, Doctor. It sounds like you got this record and you
Hell yeah.
kind of researched it a little bit and went to the DSM-4,
Beers in the chat.
which is this
Probably
diagnostic manual
nothing.
for psychological
Frogs
psychiatric
and
disorders.
piñas.
Yes.
Okay, and
Drop a pina or two.
when did you get that record?
I'm sorry, which record?
The record that you were just telling the jury about.
I got that one maybe, I want to say maybe a month prior to the start of the picking the jury. Is that how you say it?
Okay, this year,
This year.
February, March of this year, somewhere
Yes.
around that time period. Okay, and how did you get that record?
It came in a big box from the district attorney's office, about a couple feet high, and I went through each page by page, and that's how I found it.
Okay, and in this particular record, Doctor, did you see the name of the mental health professional that was associated with this record?
I did.
Okay, and was that a Barbara Koresh, something like that?
It sounded more like a Konigsberg. I can't spell it.
Okay. And apparently it gave her, she had some type of a license to give mental health treatment. Is that correct?
That's without more sustained.
Yeah. Did the record indicate she had a MFCC license?
Damn, Jersey Jen's coming through tonight to get a freaking shirts. What's going on? Damn. Another membership getting thrown out there. This time, Afton Forehead grabbing it. And Jersey Jen getting on the wheel for a third time on this spin. Let's go. Hell yes. Also,
Welcome to the party, pal.
welcome in here. Kelly and Afton getting membered back up, getting the beers back beside the name.
There were several people on that list, and I'm not sure who that referred to. I can't recall.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. What this was actually not a true medical record. Isn't that true? It was just an insurance billing record where somebody was trying to get approval for treatment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what's the difference between the two, if you could explain that to the jury?
It's for basically real simple. It's for billing purposes. That code will go to that diagnosis.
It's a fancy drink. It's one of them fancy ones.
And that way the psychiatrist or therapist can get paid.
Okay, now essentially what this was is a request to get approval to treat and from the insurance company, like a pre-approval request. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you go to the doctor, and in order to get paid, you have to submit a request to the insurance company to say, okay, I've seen a patient, this is the problem, I want approval for so many sessions, and basically they could get more later or not get more later depending upon the circumstances, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and in this particular case, did you note that that there were 6 sessions that were asked for approval?
That's correct.
Okay, and so you knew that basically she had sought that treatment, and this is what this approval document was seeking. Is that true?
That's correct.
And that diagnosis code that you talked about was in the DSM-4, that you actually went and looked at it to see what it was, and you just told the jury what that anxiety disorder was associated with, correct?
Well, it's called adjustment disorder with anxiety.
Okay, and then it also had what is known as a GAF score. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and GAF is Global Assessment of Functioning. Is that true?
Getting one of those
correct.
memberships from Jersey Gin that is being passed out here tonight. Jersey Gin is on fire. I need a clip. I need that soundbite. How does it go? She's on fire. Is that a real thing? Did I just make that up? How does that go? That's the thing, right? She's on fire. Am I making that up? Tifnock, get the hell in here. Welcome to the party, pal. Catgrow, also gifting out a membership. Kitty C313. Damn, get them back, baby. Bringing them back through. That's what I'm talking about. Get the hell in here. Also, Catgrow said, you're not taking up the entire will. Let me on that son of a bitch. And boom, here we go. Will has grown immensely here tonight. Let's see exactly where we're at. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 more to a spin. She's on fire. Does it go like that? I feel like I'm off though. This girl is on fire. That's it, right? This girl is on fire. See, I had to get the rhythm and the name. This girl is on fire. Thank you, Kraken. Kraken, help me out.
That's where a mental health professional sort of looks at the patient for the last year and sort of on a scale of 1 to 100 gives an assessment of how emotionally or mentally the person has been doing over the last year. Is that true?
Partly, yes.
And the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual for Psychiatric and Psychological Disorders sort of tells you what that score means. There's a scale. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and basically what score was represented in this particular
girl is on fire
record by the mental health professional was a 60 out of 100. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when somebody and then it also tells what the current patient problem is. There's a presenting problem. They use that term.
I don't recall that.
Okay. In the record that you reviewed, did it?
I don't know how loud this is going to be, and I don't know if this is going to come through right now, so I just want to see. I'm going to turn that down. This girl is on fire. Came through pretty good.
Have something about current PX.
Did you guys hear that?
Yes.
At this point, Your Honor, it doesn't appear that this is a medical record. It's an insurance record, according to Mr. Plord. There would be no foundation.
I agree. Sustained. You have appropriate witnesses to call if you wish. The objection is sustained.
Okay, and as part of the record, you talked about some problems with the father. That came from a different portion of the records. Is that true?
Actually, I got it off.
I've went too deep. I ain't even drinking tonight. I've got water.
Behavioral health, if I'm saying it right. And I believe I saw it somewhere else, but I don't want to speculate where else I could have seen it, but I know I saw it there.
Okay, and the entire quote, and it's in quotes in the records, is that true?
Yes.
And this would be a quote from the mental health provider who is submitting the request, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the quote is, get over...
Once again, there's no foundation. This is an insurance record, not a mental
Again,
health record.
sustained, it's not coming individually. You have that person you can call if you wish, and that's the appropriate way to do it, not through hearsay.
I'd like to approach on it as far as the door being opened on that.
No, it's the objection is sustained.
Whoa, hey, buddy. You know who the fuck you're dealing with? All right? That's Larry fucking Fiddler, all right? Judge Dowhard, Judge Bruce Willis, a.k.a. the baddest motherfucker on the planet. Calm down. How about that?
Hey, motherfucker.
In any event,
Pissing
did you
me
ever
off.
contact Barbara Koresh, K-A-R-E-S-H?
Damn, we filling her up quick. Kelly coming through with the $1.99, followed up by Pammy with the $1.99. Let's go. And she's asking for me to sing a little bit more. I may do that. I can sing now. You don't even know that. I see you, Jen. Let's ride the rails, baby. Let's go. We rocking and rolling. You know we rocking and rolling tonight. Huh? We ain't messing around.
Hold up! Hold up! Hold up!
Yeah, we like 2 names off now.
CC?
No.
Do you know,
Oh.
based upon your medical training,
Tough acting tonight.
what an MFCC is?
No.
Marriage and Family and Child Counselor or something like that?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Do you know whether that's a licensed mental health professional?
It is.
Okay. And you didn't find out about this until this year. Was there any other indication that you ever...
I think we're one away.
Ms. Clarkson had ever in the
think
past
so. Let
had
me
any
count.
type of
Let me make sure my account's not
contact
off.
with a mental health professional?
None.
The answer is no, it will stand.
And when it comes to this particular issue, is it true, Dr. Pena, when you look at, you talked a lot about mental state as to manner of death, that this is the type of thing that
Yeah,
you
one
would want to know
more. One
about.
more
Is that
till
correct?
spin.
Yes.
Shiraz,
Okay.
ready to go.
Had you
Spin that son of a
known about
bitch.
this
$5
before you
holler.
issued your opinion as to the manner of death, you would have considered this.
One
Is
to
that
go.
true?
Let me check
Well,
the
I would have looked at it,
Cash App.
Yeah, you wouldn't have just ignored it. You would have at
Nothing
least
yet,
looked
okay.
at it, given it whatever weight, and considered it for whatever you felt was appropriate. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and including all the statements in that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And
Oh, I did. Holy shit, my bad. I did miss one. Thank you, Jersey Jen, for calling that out. Holy shit, never mind. Shiraz, it did fill that thing out twice there and gifting out 5 memberships. Holy shit. Okay, wow. Hold on. Wow. Okay. Who got those sons of bitches? How did I miss that? What even happened? The chat jump or something? Drenda coming through and picking one of those up. Hello Spring grabbed one of those. Factual Lie. Pebbles377, new name, welcome in here. Factual Lie also. I don't think I recognize that name. Jeanne Daltrey. And I love the last name Daltrey. That's such a fucking dank name. Beers in the chat were also happening. How did I miss all of this? It's been getting crazy. Good Lord in heaven. Oh, I started another will by mistake. I'm so sorry. So starting the next will be Afton for it. $2. Get it. And then Catgrow will be the second on there. I apologize. Oh, my God. I caused chaos. Let me get this will going.
why would you do that, Dr. Pena? What would be the reason that you would consider that?
Holy crap.
As I was talking to you the first day when I spoke with the jurors,
Getting wild
is
in
that
here, y'all.
I'm trying to assess this person and ruling out suicide. That's part of my job, is I have to consider all factors in this case. And as I explained to you the time when I met with you on Tuesday, there was no past evidence for suicide, history of suicide attempts, or ideations. Big difference between that and anxiety.
Wow.
Just general anxiety, which we all experience, or occasional depression.
I'm afraid it's just going to spin off one day.
It's not too concerning to me when I put that and assess it. And even at this point in time, it doesn't change my opinion.
Damn.
Okay. Let me ask you, why would...
Wild in here tonight.
You're looking for, like, depression. I think you used that term.
Well, it's got to go beyond depression. That's a big difference. And
Okay.
Here we go.
Would something regarding depression going beyond that, as you use that term, you'd be looking for information concerning that, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so some people, obviously people that are depressed don't all kill themselves, is that true?
Actually, most of them don't.
Okay, so, but is depression a risk factor that you look for in self-inflicted deaths?
Yes.
Okay, so just like the other risk factors that you talked about, that's one of them, is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, I want to ask you another hypothetical question with reference to this risk factor that you talk about as far as depression, again, just as a risk factor only. Would
Kelly,
it be of
number 3 on the new wheel.
interest to you in evaluating whether or not somebody
Yes.
had a risk factor for suicide, to look at whether or not they had a history of depression? In other words, not just once, but over periods of time, going back to when they were a child.
Yes.
Okay, and why would the history and repetitive nature of that history be of significance to you?
Well, just in general, it tells you about the person's maybe upbringing, maybe what stressed them.
Whew,
But a
they're
lot
brutal.
of people live with
They're
depression
really
too.
brutal.
And they take medication, as we all know, and I mentioned too the other day, what we know from Clarkson was for headaches and not for depression, a big distinction, and that was made clearer. However, you just want to follow the person, and most people are going to get help. And most of the people that seek psychiatric help for depression actually do quite well. We do, those cases we do see at our office, obviously there's a problem and they went beyond that scope we call intent, because they wanted to kill themselves, which is, to my own mind, is, I can't conceive that idea. So it gets a little bit difficult. I'm not a psychiatrist. Of course, when I went through my medical training, I had that training a little bit. We all rotate
all over
to
this
the
wheel.
psychiatry field. And as a medical examiner, I have training in forensic psychiatry. At our office, at least, we get that 2 or 3 times a year. However, looking over time, it's hard to say. I didn't know Miss Clarkson, number one, so it's hard for me to interpret her because she's dead. Is there anything in the brain I could have seen? Well, there have been cases with brain tumors, incidentally, we have picked up, which explain erratic behavior. They're far and few between, but in our office we get once a year brain tumors. They help solve that problem, actually, why someone was acting kind of erratic. It's very interesting. But this type of depression, as Mr. Plourd's alluding to, is a biochemical. We've all heard that term, a chemical change in the brain. That needs treatment. And bottom line, that's a kind of a long-term thing, but it's okay. People move on and they do quite well, most of the people.
Now, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question as it relates to depression and a symptom of that.
I don't think he's going to let the Scott
If a person experienced a situation where they were crying all the time, would that, if a patient had that complaint, would that be an indication of depression?
No.
Okay, what would be that? What would that signify? What would that be relating to if you know?
Okay, could be a situation going on. Perhaps a divorce in the family and they're a child. That's a normal thing, and that can go on for a period of time, as an example. A death in the family, loss of a sibling, a brother or sister, or a parent. It could be very, I won't say traumatic, but it can be very upsetting. A separation anxiety, going to school for the first time, or changing schools, as an example. Someone can cry, and I've seen this happen growing up as a child. Kids were crying sometimes, and we were all looking around, little kids looking around going, what's going on? But that's normal. But a couple months pass, they get over it. They adjust. That's the whole key, they adjust. And that's what happens. It's a normal part. So we will all experience that at times in our own lives, and it's normal.
I'm not sure how many days, but
I'll make this clear to you now, is that depression or whatever, crying all the time or whatever, when it disrupts 2 things, and remember this, your work. You can't go to work, or you can't function with other people. You're not socializing. You want to be alone. You don't want to go out. Those are 2 red flags that a psychiatrist or health professionals will look for in a person to get them in and get some serious help.
Okay, so basically you would kind of factor that in, but you would want to see something more. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, and with reference to Ms. Clarkson, did your office ever mention anything in any meetings with the district attorney's office as it related to Ms. Clarkson to do what's called a psychological autopsy?
It was brought up at one meeting.
Okay, and tell the jury, well, the psychological autopsy was actually something that was developed by the Los Angeles Coroner's Office in the early 60s. Is that correct?
I don't recall that, to be honest with you.
Okay, and basically your office has
Yeah, that thing didn't squeak as bad when he sat down up the first.
for psychologists to assist you in manner of death determinations. Is that true?
That's correct.
And that's where, as part of your budget, you have paid professionals to do and assist you in looking into mental issues involving decedents. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And at a particular time, you and a number of other members of your office met with the district attorney's office regarding the need for a psychological
And
autopsy.
what is that? Is it a pear? What is that thing? A pear with a headband? Giving a thumbs up, I know that much. Hell yeah, thank you, Cat Girl, getting on there for that second wheel.
Is that true?
She's
No,
on
we
that
did
first
not.
one about to
Okay.
spin right now. So they're already building this next one.
Was
Crazy.
Was there a meeting ever where you explained to members of the district attorney's office what a psychological autopsy was?
No, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I can answer it, though.
All right, I'm taking a break. We're going to spin this wheel right now just because. Good Lord. All right, let's rock and roll. Let's spin a wheel, shall we? Good spin. Jersey Gin. Hell yeah. Jersey Gin was making sure. Spread out on that son of a bitch like a pizza. Hell yeah. Nice. Congratulations, Jersey Gin. Winning that son of a bitch.
This place is dead anyway, man.
We're not messing around.
Hold up! Hold up! Hold up!
Damn. Hell yeah, Jersey Gin. Picking yourself up on a shirt, baby. Yes. What I'm talking about. Let me go ahead and put you in the winner circle so I don't forget. And we are already working on another wheel. 8 names away from another one. Wow. Keeping them rolling. Keeping me busy is what everyone is doing, and that's awesome. So Jersey Gin, getting you in here. And yeah, just need your shirt, your size, and yeah. And yeah, Addy. I might already have all that information. So yeah, but we'll be talking. Hell yeah.
I know what you're saying. Basically, there was a meeting one time, I don't know when, we've had so many, and basically, there was one of our staff person, the technician was at the meeting, they needed him there.
Yeah.
He brought up the point and suggested, what about a psychological autopsy? Why he said this, I have no idea.
Still dancing about it, baby.
Bottom line, we do psychological autopsies only at the request of a family that contests our ruling of making it a suicide from the beginning. If this is a homicide, we made that rule, manner of death, homicide. There's no need for a psychological autopsy. That's our policy. Had this been ruled a suicide, it would have gotten contested most likely, and then we would have backtracked and done this psychological autopsy.
Yeah. Dr. Pena, I'm going to ask that you look at the next exhibit in order, and it's basically a letter from the district attorney's office to your office. And it's
What
dated.
could this letter possibly
in,
say that's going to be so
2004, I believe
freaking
it's,
earth-shattering?
March.
Nothing.
If I could have
Nothing.
the minute, Your Honor.
Yes.
May 3rd of 2004, and I left it.
I have to go get another water. Crush that one water.
It's going to be an issue, Your Honor.
All right, you may approach.
He's like, for the love of God.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is going to take some time to resolve the legal issue. You'll be sitting in the jury box, once you could have the great comfort of the jury room. No extraordinary laughter, please, from the jurors. Keep in mind the admonition. Step into the jury room. We'll call you as soon as we're ready. Thank you. All right, the jurors and alternates and the witness are outside the courtroom. You may proceed with your argument, Mr. Plord.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I was
All right, let me get a water. I'll be right back.
Basically, as I indicated, the issue of the psychological autopsy was brought up. The
Bores
district attorney's office
Judge
said that they would take
Dowhart
care of the
to death.
investigation and then turn it over to the coroner's office, and it was put in writing and it's documented in the coroner's file that occurred.
Mark
And the
Benson,
district
welcome
attorney's
in, bud.
office did do that. It's going to be our contention that they weren't qualified to do that. They had regular investigators do this, what is called a mental status exam, or the way that the district attorney's office described it, they did an investigation as to her mental state in the months preceding her death, which is essentially what you do. You get records, you look at it, you talk to witnesses. Typically, trained professionals, the people that the coroner's office hires, should be doing that, and that's what will eventually come out. But they turn this all over to the medical examiner's office in 2 large volumes, Your Honor, and it's by cover letter. When I say 2 volumes, literally maybe 500-600 pages that has investigative reports. For example, Miss Laughlin, Pumpkin Laughlin, that was talking.
Are those the same person?
Yes, that's the same person. All right. Everybody, she has a lot of different names, but she's included other people that knew or acquainted with her. And then there's a number of other documents that go with it. For example, people that know her, they email each other. There's a landlord that they talk to, different things like that. And there's a computer disk, her computer disk, Lana Clarkson's computer disk, which has some of the same emails that some of the same friends copied and gave to the district attorney's office investigators. So they basically all kind of corroborate each other. In addition, there's a document, a lot of other documents that weren't sent by email that are on the hard disk of the computer that was Lana Clarkson's computer, that contains a lot of mental health or mental status information, basically going back all the way through her life, in her own hand, her own information. In general, that's the scope of the documents that we're going to be dealing with. It's an incredible amount of material. If you add to those 2 binders all that was on the computer that wasn't turned over, it becomes extremely voluminous. And there are certain portions we feel that are significantly relevant. I'm going to highlight some of them, but not all of them, just to give the court an idea of where we're going, what we want to do. Some of this information was looked at by experts that we have, and they'll comment on that as they see fit based upon their review. But essentially, these documents, we believe, all can be authenticated independently. Some of them, I believe, Dr. Pena ultimately got. He did not, apparently, when all these documents were sent to him by the district attorney's office, Dr. Lakshman kept them. And said to Dr. Pena, according to what he told us last night, he said, Dr. Lakshman told me not to review this material. That's what he told me. I don't know exactly, how he's going to explain that on the witness stand, but he represents to us he did not review it, at least at that time. A lot of this very same information apparently went to him later because it came in through the defense. We printed out the portions of the hard drive of the computer and so forth. And some of it is very telling, and we think it will impeach the doctor as material that he would have reviewed, could have reviewed, and should have reviewed had he known about it. And they indicate in a nutshell where Ms. Clarkson is saying things to people that she's depressed. There are statements in some of these records, when you look at globally all of them, I want to kill myself. I'm tired of living. I'm going to chuck it all. I'm going to get my affairs in order, things of this nature. And the court had an in limine motion where some of these issues were discussed. Now, these are Lana Clarkson's words that are actually in writing by way of emails or within her life story. There's notations, for example, in a diary that she kept. This is a handwritten document by her where she's talking about her, drug problems, trying to be sober, but then falling off the wagon wagon, doing things like that. Those are not as significant as some of the others. But the most significant ones are where she talks about, and I believe the evidence will be that where she has delusions. She's hearing things. She's seeing things. She's seeing people who are deceased, but she's seeing them and describing them as being alive. In particular, one of the things that she describes on her computer with her own words when she's talking about her life and different problems that she's had in her life, she talks about seeing a dead actress who came to her in visions and so forth. And she's talking about seeing this person, and this was an actress who was deceased, who basically didn't make it. She was a failed actress, a struggling actress who killed herself. And she's saying that she saw visions of this actress. This actress killed herself with a gun. And she's describing this in her diary. And she's explaining that this person comes to her. She actually lives in the residence where this person may have lived. And we actually went and independently investigated the name, because she gives the name of this person. And we independently went and looked at this record and said this was a real person who really died, and really died of a gunshot wound. In other words, this story that she says regarding this person is real. Now, the detectives in this case printed out this very same story. And there's a notation in the police reports that a detective, and I don't know which one it was, we're going to get that, but read this entire diary and said, basically, oh, it doesn't contain anything relevant, and they basically set it aside. That's all that was said in all of the discovery regarding that, and it was, we finally had to print it out actually from the hard drive. Now, that's just one little thing. I've got it paginated with 20 or 30 different references to a number of different things. In the diary, it talks about things like how familiar she is with guns, and she talks about her affinity for weapons and things of that nature. Another issue that was touched upon by Dr. Pena. I don't believe Dr. Pena has reviewed this document, her story or whatever. It talks about her struggles with alcohol, her tolerance for alcohol, which we feel is relevant. At the age of 13, she talks about being given, using drugs. At the age of 17, she talks about her ability to drink alcohol. She drinks 17 shots of tequila at age 17, and that goes to issues of tolerance and use over a prolonged period of time and so forth. It gets into how she sort of has a double life. She says that certain ones of her actress friends, people that are in the industry, she puts on a different persona than her real friends, like Miss Hayes, Miss Pye, etc., that those are basically her non-social type friends. There's a number of other things that are in here that we think are extremely important as far as her mental state, and it goes all the way up to virtually the days and weeks before her death. And there's sort of a continuum that doesn't change. For example, there's a witness that's identified in these documents who was a person that knew Lana Clarkson in the weeks before her death, and basically she had a she had a role that she was trying to get into a play involving Marilyn Monroe, and she had a great affinity for Marilyn Monroe. In other words, that was sort of her idol, and she was very, very happy to get this role, and she told all her friends about it and so forth, and then because of some conduct that she engaged in, she lost that role. She never really got to play that role. That was in January of '03. In that play, one of the reasons she was terminated from it was because she was hearing voices at that particular time.
What's up?
And this is going to be, this is reported by the people that are involved in that particular situation. There's other corroboration both in her diary and her emails where she says that her little area that she lives basically in a little studio
they still just bullshit
in Venice, and she's struggling to pay her rent, and she's telling people how depressed she is because she can't make the rent, and she's going on and on about maybe having to live on the streets, having all these struggles, etc. She says that in the midst of her depression, she trashed her beloved little studio that she, in other emails, says that she really thought was a very nice place and great place. It was decorated with you know, it was a very small place, but it was a nicely put together and so forth, and all kinds of pictures of Marilyn Monroe, etc. And basically, she got in a depression in the months before she died, and she trashed the place. And so she describes that in some emails. So that's sort of just an overview of what we have. If I had more time, I could go through each and every one, but we think that this entire statement, it was considered by the experts in this case, and I believe I need to confront, and I want to confront Dr. Pena, who gave extensive testimony about mental state of mind, and he didn't review any of this material, even though he had it available to him. He was told not to review it by Dr. Lakshmanan. Now, whatever the reason is, it may be irrelevant, but the point is it's pertinent information.
Like,
you know, Mr. Jackson said the other day that, you know, he used the term "let the cow out of the barn" as far as the evidence is concerned, as far as certain things and what have you. But with reference to state of mind on direct, Dr. Pena, and he followed up on cross, he got into a lot of different things.
Yo, Pammy coming through the old Cash App for $5, and also what she says is true. For if I give this way, and that's true, coming through the Cash App, that is straight friend to friend. YouTube doesn't get a cut in that. Pammy, thank you very much. Going on the wheel, baby.
And he came to certain conclusions that there were no problems here. And if you consider all this other information, then I think that weakens and shakes his opinion and will question his opinion before the jury. And what I would want to do is to confront him with this. I can do it in any way that the court wants, but I believe many of these documents are going to come in directly because they're authenticated statements of the decedent. We don't need to... all we need to do is put on the computer person who is on our list, our witness list, who's going to say this was on her computer. We got a copy of the hard disk just like the medical examiner's office did, and this is what was on there. And the emails have dates, and some of them came from the witnesses, some of them came directly from her computer. They're basically the same information, and so forth. The only glitch that we see is that on the computer, and I'm not sure why, but some of the dates are incorrect. They put, you know,
Rosin's going to get a little bit too. Don't worry.
I'm not sure why that is, but the context
in the other eyeball
tells you what it is. There's a Christmas email and so forth. So that's in general what it is, and I can go through each and every statement if we need to, but the court, I think, got a flavor of it when we had our in limine motions as to some of it that we were dealing with. So we're looking for the stuff that goes to mental state, and we're going to focus on a lot of it, but more particularly in the months preceding the death of Miss Clarkson.
Thank you, people.
Dear God.
Your Honor, this is all, I guess...
Say Jack's got to say.
If the doctor ever saw this stuff. This started with an objection to a letter that Mr. Plord was seeking to put on the overhead and introduce the jurors to.
Christopher Plord.
Saying, if you, the independent agency, the coroner's office, wish to do an independent evaluation or a psychological autopsy, whatever that may entail, then here's the stuff you can use to do it with. We don't want to stand in your way if, in fact, that's your desire. The coroner's office decided as an entity unto itself that's not necessary. We're not going to do it. And Dr. Pena just explained why. So Mr. Plord just went on for 15 minutes about all the stuff that he thinks is relevant in that information or contained in that information. Dr. Pena didn't review it.
Well,
he didn't look at it.
And I'll get to what materials, if any, can be used. But even if an expert doesn't review certain materials, if he comes to a conclusion, he or she comes to a conclusion and says, I make a determination this is a homicide and not a suicide, and this is what I based it on. Are you saying that an expert can't be cross-examined? Did you consider this? Did you consider X, Y, and Z? And if you did not, would that change your opinion?
Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to narrow the focus of what we're doing here.
Okay.
He wanted to publish a letter concerning a psychological autopsy and the information that was contained in that letter and in a box that Dr. Pena never reviewed.
Well, we've got into the bigger problem now. We all knew it was coming.
The broader picture is, I think we can kind of dispose of that issue. The broader picture is, for instance, most of, and I would invite Mr. Plord, by the way, he said, and I said this up at the bench, and I would reiterate this, that Mr. Plord and I may have a different view of certain facts. Mr. Plord just got up and said that statements like, I want to kill myself, I can't go on any longer, I want to kill myself, is in Lana Clarkson's own writing. If Mr. Plord can point me to an email where she said, I want to kill myself, I'd invite him to do that immediately and show the court where that's contained. And of course, the silence rings true because it's not contained in any email. Lon Clarkson never said, and I want to make sure that the court is aware.
Calling him
what
out.
wasn't said. There's
Shit,
an email
getting a little
to
spicy.
A friend of hers about
Jessica,
some
what's
financial
up?
difficulties in borrowing money and her acting career, and she says,
He's just up there saying anything, talking out the side of his fucking head.
She never
And
said, "I
Ajax
would
is
kill myself."
reeling that son of a bitch back
That
in right
comes
now.
solely from a woman who calls herself Pumpkin Pie. So I want to make sure we don't mix up what the facts are. The court hasn't had the chance to review or preview these 10,000 pages of discovery. I know you're having to kind of catch up. So I just want to make sure on salient points like that the court is very clear about what was and wasn't said, or was and wasn't written. Liberties should not be taken with facts as salient as these. I guess I should start with the emails. I don't have a big problem with. I've never objected to the defense cross-examining the appropriate witness or bringing the appropriate witness to establish that Lana Clarkson may have sent emails saying certain things at or around the time of her death. One thing I have a big problem with is this story of my life thing that Mr. Plord alludes to and says he's got paginated or Post-it notes on 30 or 40 or 50 different places in this story of my life. That cannot be authenticated. The inherent trustworthiness of that document cannot be substantiated through the existence of it on our hard drive. One of the things that Mr. Plord didn't mention is the fact that the emails back and forth to this person, David Shapiro, the reason that Lana Clarkson knew David Shapiro is because she was in a creative writing class with Mr. Shapiro. Creative writing. Who knows how factual any of this stuff is? The story of her life where she starts off talking about her childhood and then moves into her modeling career and flying to Paris and flying to New York and involved with rock bands and going to Cannes Film Festival, et cetera, taking her on up to later points in her life. First of all, it's not dated, and there is some question as to when it was written and when it was stopped and how complete it is. And there's also some question about how accurate it is. I guess I would invite the court to look through it and read it before it makes a determination about whether or not Mr. Plord can cross-examine a forensic pathologist on the contents of that. Who knows how creative Miss Clarkson got with this story of her life, assuming that maybe one day, she was I think witnesses would agree, she was somewhat dramatic. She was an actress.
Isn't that more appropriate for cross-examination or for argument than as to whether, if you don't disagree, that these are her own words?
Oh, I don't know that. I cannot authenticate this document. In my own mind, if she's working with other writers or she's going to a class, a creative writing class, who's to say how much of that comes from her? Who's to say how much of it is re-edited by other people saying, no, you need to change this paragraph and it needs to be sexier, or it needs to be funnier, or it needs to be more dramatic, or it needs to be lighter, or it needs to be darker. I don't know. I'm not a creative writer. But I know that it's usually not something that is based in or founded in fact. If, in fact, that can be authenticated, I don't even know that this doctor is the right person to cross-examine on this. If, in fact, he had read it, that might be one thing. If he considered it, might be one thing. If he didn't consider it and it doesn't have that much probative value, I would argue under 352 to get all this information in from a document or a file that is on her hard drive that cannot be seriously authenticated, like the emails can be authenticated.
Ajax like, yo, I'm going to go in too, bro.
I don't understand. It's from her computer. I don't think you're denying that. You're saying other people had access to her computer.
When I say authenticated, Judge, maybe I'm picking the wrong word. It can't be established.
Here's a word
it's
wizard.
founded in truth.
He's a freaking
rather
word
than
wizard,
fiction.
dude.
It is a fictionalized characterization of the story of her life. In my view. I mean, there are certain things in there that are completely and utterly irrelevant to the proceedings before the court. What happened on February 3rd, 2003. And certainly, if she indicated that this was an actual factual account, that this was a journal that she kept on a daily basis and she had dates, that might be a little bit different. But this is a creative writing endeavor.
Well, that's what you say it is.
Correct. It is what I say it is.
Well, it's someone's diary, whether it's accurate or not. Obviously, when the person's deceased, you always face that problem. And I think you're you may be arguing way too much. And you have a case that says if you have the words of a deceased, and let's assume for a second that her state of mind is at issue in the case, which it clearly is, and she puts forth in her diary her state of mind. Whether it's true or not, whether she was taking liberties is certainly something to argue to the jury. How do you keep that away from the jury, and how do you keep that away from consideration of the experts who make the determination as to what her state of mind was, when that's a factor that they should consider?
I guess because I would ask the court to utilize its discretion. The court has broad discretion in limiting what an expert can be cross-examined on. Normally, this would not be admissible.
Why?
If the judge, I'm sorry, if the defense is trying to authenticate it, I think they will have, and I'm using the word authenticate again, if they're trying to establish that it's founded in fact rather than fiction, rather than a fictional characterization or a fictionalized characterization of her life, I think that they would have a problem doing that.
Do you have a case?
The only thing I would draw the court's attention to are the cases that Garderly and its progeny that says that the court has the authority to limit cross-examination of experts to those matters which are inherently reliable or inherently trustworthy. And I certainly
That's sort of the point of finding a diary. That person didn't think about something like this happening, and they're like, one day a murder's going to happen, and I've got all these lies. That's not how it works usually.
As they could establish that, for instance, an email to friends might be inherently trustworthy. Certainly, I'm not arguing that. The medical records, inherently trustworthy. I've not argued or stood up and made a complaint about certain of those medical records, unless they're, untimely or remote in time. But this document, it's a story. It's even called a story.
When you say it's called a story, what is it called?
You know what? I think she calls it the story of her life. I think. I may be mistaking that for what one of the investigators called it when he read it.
Okay.
See Raza back there?
I was born John Elite, Lana Jean Clarkson. And then it goes on from, I guess, the day she was born, on through a characterization of her endeavors, her engagements, what she's done with her life, her modeling career, her acting career, etc.
Are those factually accurate?
I have no idea. I mean, there's a reference to Barbarian Queen. That's factually accurate. She was, in fact, she did star in Barbarian Queen.
Barbarian Queen, confirmed Feral Friday viewing party.
The court can't know.
Sounds like a good one.
Can't know, and certainly
We do know.
Dr. Pena cannot know.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clark?
Your Honor, a couple of things.
1985.
Yes. What we've done is we've looked at it, and essentially it's the story of her life. It's basically a factual account of her life. For example, that little medical record that we just had, that is recounted in her diary, or her story. The statement about her dying is in one of the district attorney's office reports that is sent to the coroner's office from Miss Laughlin. The email that she sends, that's in her own words, says, and this is a quote right out of the email, I am truly at the end of this whole deal. I am going to tidy up my affairs and chuck it because it's all too much for just one girl to bear anymore.
Lana
Don't worry,
Clarkson
not
and
before I pay you
Barbarian
back.
Queen.
And that's in the
amazing.
context of somebody asking her to repay money that she's borrowed. She's borrowed a lot of money from a lot of people, has a lot of debt. She can't work because she's had some injuries. She's talking in other emails that she's severely depressed. The actual I want to kill myself comment is in a district attorney's office report from Miss Laughlin, and Miss Laughlin is included in this letter and so forth to the coroner's office, part of the records that Dr. Lexlaman told Dr. Pena purportedly not to read. The entire computer hard drive, which includes her life story, was given to the medical examiner's office, saying that, and this is a quote right out of the letter here, basically as a follow-up to the year before when they were talking about doing the psychological autopsy that was, hey, don't do it, it's premature, we'll take care of this, basically. It says that, as I promised you in my May 3rd letter, enclosed are the various reports and attachments generated during our investigation. It lists 30 different reports, including the ones that we just talked about, another person, and then also here's the entire computer hard drive for Miss Clarkson that was seized from her apartment. That is all her material. we went back, for example, with the information that's in there, and it's all corroborated in her medical records. In other words, she puts that in her life story. Everything is very succinct. The witness interviews that the district attorney did, some of those are mentioned in the life story. It covers a lot of different issues. For example, how much she liked guns and what she did with guns and her familiarity with weapons, which that door was open. That's another cow that got out of the barn that Dr.
Another cow that got out of the barn.
Alcohol and drug abuse extensively. That's all corroborated in the medical records. In other words, it's cross-corroborated. In the interviews that they did, they talk about guns and people and things of that nature. We went and researched the story about her having this vision of this dead actress who couldn't make it in Hollywood.
I know, you've told me about that.
Right, and basically she mentioned that she saw the visions at a particular location. So we independently researched that address. We went there, and at the time she was living in a house with some other people, the very house where that actress lived, and found out that she did live there. In other words, we corroborated the fact that she was a tenant there, and so it tied 100%, and that was our lead to that. And this is stuff that the district attorney's office had. So everything in her life story has been corroborated. Basically, whether she may have embellished something here or there, when she says she drank 17 shots of tequila, maybe it was 15, but that's what she put down. And she talks about, you know, doing that when she was like 17 years old, and then she talks about that continuously through this. The story is sort of her life story up until about a year or so before her demise, and so she quit writing it. We think that the fact that she quit writing it and not continuing it is significant too, and so that sort of has an independent kind of air of validity to it. What he's talking about, this creative writing class, doesn't correlate with this particular story. There are some things on her computer that deal with that, and we're not going to get into those. They're clearly stories that she writes. She sends a copy to this other person she's in this creative class with. They're basically like scripts or something like that. And
does she identify them as such?
Yeah, she basically says that I wrote this story. What did you think about my story regarding X, Y, and Z? And there's a number of those. Those are, we're not going to touch any of those. Now, there is another thing that she did that she independently talks in her emails about, is that she goes to some metaphysical therapist or something. I'm not sure what you call it. It's not a mainstream, but she did it to rearrange her subconscious. And she refers to going to this person, and this is in the recent history prior to her death. She's having all these problems. She's going to go to that person to rearrange her subconscious. It's some type of therapy, and I'll characterize it very simply, is that it's something to try to make you feel better about your life or whatever. You look into a candle and you meditate or something, and she basically, as part of that, describes what she does, and she describes visions that she sees. She sees the visions of a cowboy. She sees a vision of George Bush come to her, and these are delusional type visions, etc. So, and she puts that in writing, and we've got those documents that are on her computer too. Those are separate and apart from her story. And so there's a lot of information like that goes right up to the time of her death back in 2003. And so all of these issues, if we're going to get into is it accurate, is it correct, then we'll bring it on. We got to do it. But we think we can authenticate it, not only that it's hers, but that it's factually accurate.
Thank you. Do the people have any facts that, as to this, I will call it the diary, that are demonstrably false, that show that it's not truthful, or it's not the truth as she saw it, that it's basically what you call a creative writing exercise?
The only thing we have is the same thing that the defense has, which is we got it off of her hard drive. I mean, the court is asking us to engage in something that we can't do. I just don't know, Judge.
Well, I'm asking. You might have independent facts. Someone might state, you know, in 1984 I went to meet with whomever, and you can show that in 1984 they couldn't have done so.
Your Honor, one of the things that the court should know is there's a lot of talk about a lot of actors in this. She knew a lot of actors.
Okay.
I guess I could make a couple of phone calls, but I don't know that I would want to
that's up to you.
Mention any of the names right now in open court. But if that's, I mean, I don't know that we need to. I don't know, I'm looking for guidance from the court. If the
I'm
court
going
is asking
to give you some guidance. Don't worry. I'll give you plenty of guidance. I give everybody. While we're dealing with this, that
Voice of
does
reason.
answer my question. There is another issue that is directly related, and I want to deal with it now while we have the jury out, because we're going to come to it sooner or later. And that is whether any of the experts may be questioned concerning Mr. Spector's statements. And since this is all part and parcel of it, let's argue it now.
Yeah, we're gonna change.
Do you need a break?
Yeah.
We're going to take 10
They're
minutes.
like, let's just give me a break. Give me a break. These arguments are draining my
And then we'll
soul.
move forward with Dr. Pena, and I'll start reviewing this. I take it that there goes this weekend is what you're saying. Okay. I'm used to it.
Yeah, Your Honor, the story, it starts where she was born, what hospital she was in, all of it is basically a chronicle of facts.
Okay.
And it just moves through all her whole life. So,
All right. Let's talk about the statements.
the one thing that we were going to do, we were going to mark it as an exhibit, and I think that's what we'd like to do. And we'll mark it at this time and let the court look at it. What would be the next in order?
Triple I.
Triple I?
Aye.
Thank you. And this is not the all and end all. In other words, there's a lot of stuff that corroborates the information that's in here. So if the issue is reliability, then we have to get into that, at length.
Okay.
But as to the statements, basically what we're talking about is reports information, as Dr. Pena has testified, that he was provided concerning Mr. Spector. Now, we just got these copies of these this morning, actually, after numerous requests and so forth, and so I wasn't planning to get into the details of that till this afternoon, but basically, because I want to look at them all over the lunch hour to make sure I'm correct on that. But in general, based upon what's in the coroner's file, he mentions that he reviews statements and reports and things like that, and that basically there are conflicting statements as to the manner of death, whether it was I shot somebody, which is the D'Souza statement that he clearly articulates and he's mentioned a couple of times. But the conflicting nature of the statements are the statements of Mr. Spector at the police station, some that are at the house, where basically he says that she committed suicide. The court, I think, knows sort of the details of what these statements are from previous motions, and I won't get into the exact quotes and so forth. I think it really is what the witness knows about that, his understanding as to what they are, that's the pertinent thing, but that's the general nature of it. But the particular ones that we're interested in are the conflicting statements as to whether it's a self-inflicted wound versus a death at the hands of another. Which puts the issue before the jury in his manner of death consideration. In addition to that, there's a statement where and it's in the reports that apparently Dr. Pena had, is that Mr. Spector is inviting the police in initially. In other words, come on in.
Color speaks.
And then there's a delay, and then there's the tasering and all of that the court is very well aware of. But essentially what the people, what Dr. Pena was told was that basically he had this consciousness of guilt, that he did all this consciousness of guilt stuff, and we think those observations in the reports are relevant too. Also, for example, there's a statement that is in one of the reports that Dr. Pena reviewed that goes to the issue of consciousness of guilt that we want to address, because for example, the wiping of the gun is a big one that is being used against Mr. Spector and so forth, but where he is being wrestled to the ground and one of the police officers, or he's being arrested, cuffed, and so forth right near where the incident occurred, and he's asking a police officer who's doing that, get my coat upstairs. This is the coat that ultimately has these few specks of blood on it that is supposedly incriminating. In other words, he wants to get the coat to go with him, and it's basically on the floor in plain sight upstairs, and he's asking a police officer to get it for him so that he could get his phone numbers out of it, basically, because it's in his coat. So he's not trying to hide the coat. It's just so we think that that's also part and parcel with it. And then the spontaneous statements that the court is aware of. And these are all the statements that Mr. Cutler wanted to get into in the opening statement, and because the people chose not to go there, we weren't allowed to do that. So there's nothing new and different about these. But because Dr. Pena considered all of these, we think we're entitled to go there. The door's been open. That's another cow that was let out of the barn, so to speak. And we want to get into these statements that he reviewed been considered to essentially show that there's a conflict in the manner of death determination. Dr. Pena chose to go one way, but he considered other options too. And I think it's fair to be able to cross-examine him. I brought this up in my trial brief, the general concept, and would ask that we be permitted to be given wide latitude, given the series of this case, to go to all of those statements.
Thank you, people.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to continue on this because the court apparently has directed counsel to People v. Gardelli, California Supreme Court case, which I know the court's read, and so I won't repeat all of it, but it does talk about that the court has considerable discretion to control the form in which an expert is questioned and prevent the jury from hearing incompetent hearsay, and the threshold requirement here is reliability. Well, Mr. Plord just talked about spontaneous statements. I thought in an earlier ruling the court ruled that these statements were not spontaneous statements, and the reason that they're not spontaneous statements is because we're talking about an hour or so between
barn doors open
murder and the first statement,
probably get a
and then a couple 3 hours before the second statement. In Evidence Code 1220, which discusses spontaneous statements, in the Law Revision Committee comments, it talks about the need for trustworthiness and the lack of opportunity for the declarant to reflect and to avoid deliberate fabrication. That's exactly what's going on here. That's the whole reason for 1220 of the Evidence Code, is that those kind of statements aren't put on without the defendant being subject to cross-examination, and that's why these statements are not spontaneous statements. They lack the reliability, the trustworthiness that Gardelli talks about. And so I think that the court, under that case, under that California Supreme Court case, does have the discretion to control and prevent the jury from hearing unreliable hearsay. And that's exactly what it is, unreliable hearsay, even in this context of cross-examining an expert.
Okay.
I would argue that they should not come in.
Thank you. Anything further?
Just one thing I would add, and I know the court knows this, but maybe it needs to be said, is when you're looking at the exception to the hearsay rule in spontaneous statement, the exact time frame, whether it's an hour, or it's a half an hour, or 3 hours, isn't what's controlling it. I know the court understands this, and the law's pretty clear on that. It's basically whether or not the statement is tied to the event itself.
It's been a while.
And it isn't measured.
It's been a while since we've seen his fuck face.
Thank you.
One other point I wanted to bring up
It's been a while
that has been mentioned
since
is that
he stood
some of
up
what
and
is said by the
spouted out
officers
some
or
shit.
observations, for example, one of the officers says something like, he noticed Mr. Spector was under the influence of alcohol and that he was mumbling incoherently. This is at the time of.
Rosen was defense still.
What's this got
The state
to do
was
with
talking for a minute.
Because
The other dude.
they've introduced
I don't know his
the
name,
statements that were made
Jackson's
allegedly
tag
to
team
the
prosecution
driver.
partner, brother.
And that goes to what weight you give those statements. So in and of themselves, it sort of by inference, maybe Dr. Pena didn't know about that, didn't properly consider it. Maybe he didn't remember that. So it goes to what weight you give that other statement, which he clearly, the court is allowing Dr. Pena to review. Of course, that witness has testified, so he was fully subject to cross-examination. We're prepared to call that officer as to those statements also, but we think we should be able to cross-examine Dr. Pena on that too.
Thank you. We're generally talking about Evidence Code Section 801B and the cases that interpret that code section as to what the expert may rely on. The general rule is that an expert can rely on inadmissible hearsay, and that's the general rule in arriving at his opinion. However, that has been severely limited, in my mind, by the Gardelli case, which is spelled Gardely, 14 Cal 4th, 605. The pertinent language is at pages 618 and 619, and I'm going to quote from that. And it sets forth the general rule about using what may be inadmissible hearsay. A trial court, however, has considerable discretion to control the form in which the expert is questioned to prevent the jury from learning of incompetent hearsay. The trial court also has discretion to weigh the probative value of inadmissible evidence relied upon by an expert witness against the risk that the jury might improperly consider it as independent proof of the facts recited therein. And that's exactly what, in my mind, the defense is attempting to do. It's attempting to allow Mr. Spector to testify without subjecting him to cross-examination. This statement by Mr. Spector is completely unreliable. The court has already ruled that it does not qualify as a spontaneous or contemporaneous statement, and I stand by that ruling. Mr. Spector had adequate time to reflect on that statement before the statement was made. The statement is so prejudicial because the people have no attempt or no ability to cross-examine Mr. Spector, that those statements, I don't care whether an expert has looked at them or considered them or not, they are not coming in, period. That is my ruling. My ruling stands. It is final. His statements concerning suicide are out. If he wants those statements in, Mr. Spector may testify, and then he may be subject to cross-examination. There's nothing more to state, Mr. Cutler. If you want to say something, that's fine. When I issue a ruling, that is the ruling. That is the law. It is clear that case could not have been better written for this particular case had the justices chose to do so. This type of evidence is not to come before the jury, and it will not come before the jury.
Can it come in a vanilla way, in a generic way? The reason I say that, most respectfully, for Dr. Pena now, our jury is hearing about statements. I don't know if they are thinking about the Sousa. I don't know if they're thinking about the Page statement come in. They don't know what statements are involved here. So can't we make it so that the jury understands that Dr. Pena was hesitant until he went over everything? I think it was until July of '03 or September of '03 that he made it a formal official homicide, that these statements are not being offered for the truth per se, but they're offered to show what Dr. Pena was considering before he decided it was a homicide, because the jury is now under the impression that the statements are all inculpatory when in fact the statements are exculpatory. And I understand. But Judge, how do we get short of what you said about testifying? Just as to Dr. Pena's state of mind, as to what he considered, can't Mr. Plord go into the fact that there was conflicting statements? By that, he means statements made to the police or statements overheard by the police that conflicted with homicide. Somehow, some way, the jury's getting a third of a story when they should get a full story.
No, because you can't use, for the reasons I've already stated, this type of a statement, even if the expert has looked at it. The bottom line, because you're trying to bring in, I'm going to be very blunt.
No, I'm really
the defense is, no.
I'm really not, Your Honor. In other words, just as to the limited
He's not even listening to the fucking judge.
Limited. That's the whole idea. That's exactly what the Gardley case talks about. Because when you introduce those statements, they're solely for the purpose of showing what the expert considered.
I don't know.
And I may consider probative value,
he's not even listening.
Prejudicial value, which I have, the fact that this statement is totally unreliable.
The judge is fucking diehard.
The statement is not coming in.
I understand the court's ruling. I don't agree with the court's ruling.
You don't have to agree with it.
But I thought we could vitiate the statements and color them so that they're not coming in the way the court's
there is no way to do that I can see.
Well, we can organize it so that when Dr. Pena is testifying, the jury's under the impression, I believe, Your Honor, that it's just De Sousa's statement that he's talking about.
If you stay away from the statement what other statements are you talking about?
Got some fajitas going here right at the end of tonight's episode. Cutler ain't said nothing since the early days of this trial. And he's up here again. Well, of course, what's he doing? Trying to fight fucking the judge. That's all he's trying to do.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. I don't know what happened. She killed herself.
Now, those are Mr. Spector's statements.
Well, those are statements that Dr. Pena was concerned about, that caused him to hesitate and pause and wait months and months, Your Honor, until he formally said, yes, this was a homicide. So how do we get into that? Can we do it through a hypothetical?
How do you get into it? Put Mr. Spector on the stand.
Short of that, can we do it through a hypothetical? He's an opinion evidence?
No.
An opinion expert witness?
No. You can't use this because basically what you're I've already explained it. There's no, we're re-arguing at this point.
I'm trying to seek guidance, Your Honor. I'm trying to seek guidance.
You cannot get any evidence of these suicides concerning Mr. Spector's statements that Ms. Clarkson committed suicide in this manner. It can't be done.
Can Mr. Plord ask Dr. Pena, we'll discuss this before Dr. Pena comes back, whether he reviewed certain statements, generic statements made by Mr. Spector at the time of the arrest that were factored into his decision, just so that the jury knows, the jury doesn't know there were these statements made. So all they know is a woman died in February, and 7 months later it's declared a homicide, notwithstanding the initial homicide check on the form.
Yeah, Mark. Thanks for coming through, man.
There were statements made that caused a problem for Dr. Pena.
You may not go into statements.
Yeah, we covered this twice a week.
You know, we're re-arguing this case, Mr. Rose, and I think I've made my ruling as clear as it can be.
Well, you know why, Judge? Because it's only for Dr. Pena. I'm not bringing it in.
I understand who it's for. I'm saying it's not admissible for any reason, and for the reasons I stated.
And of course, Your Honor, you remember in the opening, you permitted me to adduce the statement. Come in, you've got to see this.
I know.
That was to Officer Page.
I am talking about the statements that supposedly are exculpatory. They may not come in.
How about to vitiate the so-called consciousness of guilt argument?
For any reason. They cannot come in under the case that I just cited for the reason.
Listen, motherfucker!
They are non-admissible.
Understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, mob lawyer. Good Lord, sit the fuck down. I think Phil's even about to be like, dude, what are you doing? Is this the day he fires him? Good fucking moogly Jesus. God.
Coming in, period.
Can we brief this, Your Honor?
No, there's nothing to brief.
No, sit the fuck down.
Anything you wish.
I want to discuss with co-counsel.
You can do anything you want. I have ruled, and that ruling stands.
All right, sir.
Okay? Are we ready to proceed?
I'm going to just make sure. I'm not going to re-argue the ruling. My understanding of the court's ruling is nothing regarding any police statements regarding suicide is going to come in. I'm not permitted to either to bring in the fact that the statements were conflicting.
He literally just set up and made a fucking ass of himself.
Okay, so I just want to make sure.
That's all he did.
But the statement about coming in, the statement about the go get my coat, those are
different
separate
statements.
apart. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. My thought is I would like to go and at least authenticate the letters that started.
Look how mad he is.
You know, and
look how fucking mad Cutler is sitting
Well,
here.
why don't we get into that after
Red
I have
as
a chance
hell.
to read things and we revisit the issue when appropriate? Can you move along and can we go to some other?
I will, Your Honor.
Good
Thank
Lord.
you.
Okay, you ready? Let's bring out the jurors and the alternates. Bring back Dr. Pena.
God, we're out tonight. My goodness, where are we going next? What is starting up Sunday morning? Dr. Pena, of course, I guess. 22 minutes. Now we're going to keep rolling with this. We got this in us.
Dr. Pena, I want to
22 more minutes in us. Let's roll another one through. Fuck it. I'm going to go upstairs and get my baggie. I'll be right back.
Concerning Ms.
That's a
Clarkson's
small one. I didn't even
prescriptions
expect
and so forth.
that.
As part of the
22
package of
minutes?
materials that you
Must be
recently
finishing out the
received,
day.
this box that's basically in your office, correct?
Yes.
Part of
Cutler,
it is
good
some pharmacy
God.
records or from Long's drugstore, basically, where Ms. Clarkson received her medications, and you got a printout or a record of all of that. Is that
Someone
correct?
see this
Yes.
dude out.
And
All right, I'll be right back.
included in there were a number of these medications that we previously have been talking about, including the medication that we talked about yesterday dealing with the bleeding problem or that causes bleeding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so we'll get to the Long's records in a minute, but basically as part of a medical investigation as to cause of death and circumstances surrounding death, you try to inventory and understand what medications the person may have been on at the time of their death or close in time to their death. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you do, and you've talked about toxicology results. Mr. Jackson asked you a number of questions about those, and part of that investigation is you see whether the person has in their pocket or in their purse any medications that might be relevant to your inquiry. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how is that done? In other words, who's in charge of that? You, one of your staff, one of the investigators?
In this case, it's Investigator Barbara Nelson at the death scene that did the inventory of Ms. Clarkson's medications, which were in her that leopard purse on her shoulder.
Okay, and would it be true, Dr. Pena, that there's a document and a record that's kept of the inventory that's done?
Yes.
And it's a standard medical or coroner's office record that's kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
And it's a one-page inventory, is that correct?
Yes.
And could we have marked next in order an inventory page?
Triple J.
Triple J.
How are we doing?
Showing what's been marked Triple J that's on the record on the screen now, Dr. Pena. Could you look at this and tell me what it is?
That's a Form 3A. It's medical evidence that's collected at a death scene in this case. And it tells you it gives you an inventory of the drugs or medications a person may be taking, the number that are issued.
That's a good idea.
The number that remain, where it may have been filled, who the doctor is that prescribed it, if known, if necessary. And basically that's it. And at the bottom is what's called paraphernalia description, which could be other medications found that were maybe loosely in her purse, which was the case here. And that's it.
Okay, so this is just basically an inventory record associated with the decedent that was collected from her purse, which was at the scene of her death, correct?
Yes.
And so it goes through, it doesn't necessarily, it's essentially what was found.
Yes.
Okay, and was a similar type document created at her apartment or place that she lived?
I don't know that.
Okay, and does your staff actually go to the location where the decedent lived or place where they were residing to look for medications and things of that nature?
Normally not. In a case like this, normally not.
Okay, but in any event, you did this, and then you tie this together with the toxicology discussions or results that you do. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so for example, here there's over-the-counter medications and so forth. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall having discussions about medications and so forth with members of the district attorney's office concerning this case?
Well, that would be with Mr. Doug Sortino and I believe with Mr. Jackson, but I can't recall when. I didn't take any notes on that.
Okay. Do you remember there being a note that on one of your meetings that essentially you felt that all she was taking was over-the-counter medications as far as what was in her purse?
Yes.
Okay, now look at the fourth one down, if we could have that highlighted, or actually enlarge a little bit. In fact, that's what you told the deputy DAs, is that as far as what was on her possession, you felt that all she had was over-the-counter type medications. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right, and is this an over-the-counter medication?
I don't know, to be honest with you, on that one.
What is HYDROCO?
That would be hydrocodone. That's Vicodin. I think you need a prescription for that. That's pretty strong analgesic. They call it, or pain reliever.
Okay, and this is something acetaminophen. It's a combination.
Acetaminophen. That's right.
Acetaminophen. Okay.
Or Tylenol.
And that's a combination one. And in your system,
the Vicodin
system.
The Vicodin was, and I don't believe we tested for acetaminophen. I can't recall offhand.
Okay. But in any event, that would be consistent with this record here. Is that correct, the Vicodin?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. And you talked at length about and were questioned about whether it's a therapeutic dosage and so forth by Mr. Jackson. You felt that the level was. And what was tested as far as the Vicodin was concerned?
Got one going, baby.
Oh, the Vicodin was tested.
Okay, in other words, what fluid was tested? Was it a blood test or urine or something else?
Let's go.
It was blood.
Okay, and Was there a test of the bile that was also done, the toxicology bile?
Yes.
Okay, before we give you the result, or you talk about that result, can you tell the jury what the difference is when you test the blood versus the bile? In other words, what is bile? What's it used for as far as toxicology work?
Well, basically, the blood is the first part where you take a medication orally, it's going to get absorbed through your stomach, eventually get into your bloodstream. Then we get the sample and test it, and that's the blood that we're looking at, the result, of course, which is the blood sample. In the process of all that, though, that medication is going elsewhere. It's going, of course, through the liver. Actually, it goes through the liver first. In this case, if it is ingested orally, and as part of that process, not only goes into the liver tissue to get what's called metabolized or broken down, but it gets stored also in what's called the bile sac, which is underneath the liver. That's, the gallbladder, where it's stored. The gallbladder makes components or chemical elements called bile, which help digest our fats, etc. And that's like a little punching bag, it looks like, again, underneath the liver. And that's where it's stored. So I took that out and saved all fluids from basically her whole body. And all this tells us is that if it's present in the bile...
Got to calm down after Cutler rant.
And it's stored
Son of a
there.
bitch gets me going. Every time he speaks, we change it very often.
That's all I can tell you.
I've screamed. I scream into the mic
well,
when that man
let me rephrase it and ask it in this
starts
way.
fighting back.
When you test the bile, you're able to look at sort of
with the very even-toned Judge Dowhard. He's very even-toned. He's very fair.
Of drugs.
It's very
it doesn't
clear.
necessarily give you a current level that's in the body at the time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so that would tell us something different than the level that's in the body as far as over time or chronic use of the drug. Is that true?
That's true.
And you knew from the records that from the medical records, one of the ones that we talked about before, that she was on this drug for quite some time. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was this a prescription use or was it a non-prescription use, or do you know one way or the other?
You know, I don't know.
Okay, and the only way you would know is you'd have to look at the prescriptions. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you knew from the testing of the bile levels in the that was done by your toxicology people that there was some test results that were significant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and do you have your toxicology records there with you now at this time?
Let me find them here. Okay.
All right, and this is the same record or documents that you were talking about when you talked about the 0.14 blood alcohol, 0.12 blood alcohol level?
Yes.
Okay, and it talked about the hydrocodone level that you mentioned in your direct examination. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you basically testified that the hydrocodone level, which is kind of an opiate derivative, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
It's the class of drugs it is. Is that true?
Yes.
And you said it was a 0.07 milligrams per milliliter. Is that correct?
Actually, I'm sorry. That's okay. It's micrograms, UG/ml.
Okay. And that's basically how the level is quantified in the blood. Is that true?
Yes.
Now, was the bile reading, was it higher or lower than that?
It's higher.
Okay, and was it more than twice as high?
It would be about 4 times higher, about 4 times.
4 times higher,
Yeah.
Okay. So 0.07, and in the bile it was 2.7, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so significantly higher, and that would give you a more definitive long term as to what the levels were when they were basically at their peak or whatever. In other words, she could never have been lower than that at any particular time.
That's a difficult one for me to interpret, to be honest with you. This is basically just telling you a distribution, and I can't backtrack from the bile and quantitate at any point in time what levels may or may not have been in this person. It's beyond my expertise.
I need to make a rap song about Dr. Pena.
All right, and then with reference to the toxicology results, and we'll since we're on this subject, you talked a lot about the alcohol level being 0.12, 0.14. That's actually pretty close, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you made some statements that the 0.12 level is more accurate than the 0.14
He's been on the stand for so long. There's
level.
petitions outside the court saying free Dr. Pena.
To the extent that that's significantly different, what is the basis of your knowledge to give that opinion, that the 0.12 is more accurate? And you explained something about the alcohol being in equilibrium or what have you?
Well, basically, yes, it's the water soluble. Alcohol is water soluble, so it'll pass through the blood-brain barrier as it would anywhere else in our body. But the femoral is a little more accurate because it's out in the periphery. It's been distributed already, and it's circulated basically through the body, and that's why I say it's probably a little more accurate in this case.
Okay. What research or basis do you have for that? In other words, is there a study that you've relied upon?
There's a distribution discussion that's done, and it's in a book called Basalt, B-A-S-S-E-L-T. He's one of the authorities on
Tiff, what's up?
Toxins and drugs that we rely on in our office. And they talk about, this is after death, so it'll help you out, about redistribution
I don't know why I feel like that,
ratios between
but
heart
I do.
and other areas of the body. It gives it ratios sometimes. And in this case, it'll go heart to femoral. It has a ratio like 2 to 1, 3 to 1, et cetera, or fractions of that, 2.5 to 1. So you get a little bit of understanding that the heart will be a little higher than it would be in the femoral. So you can kind of evaluate that.
Okay, so you're getting it from this book by Randall Basalt, essentially. Is that correct? That's his first name?
I'm sorry, that's correct.
Okay, and he's a toxicologist that is published on that subject, is your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, but basically alcohol is absorbed through the stomach and it goes into the bloodstream as it's absorbed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're saying that once it gets into the bloodstream, depending upon where you get it, it's either higher or lower, depending upon the location where you draw the blood out.
In general, yes.
Okay, so, and you're, okay, very good, doctor. Now, following up on the toxicology testing that you did, getting back to the medications and various drugs that were collected from Lana Clarkson, you were also given recently, because we provided those to the people and they gave them to you in this box that you have at your office, you're actually given prescription ordering records, is that correct?
Yes.
And those are very detailed. Is that true, doctor?
Yes, they are.
And did you carefully go through them?
I did.
Okay, and when did you do that?
About maybe a couple months ago to a month ago prior to my testimony today.
Soon after you received them, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you make any attempt to get those records back in 2003 at or near the time that you rendered your opinions in this particular case?
No.
Did you have a reason for that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you feel that they were irrelevant?
No.
Okay. If we could have Mark next in order, a document called Long's Drugs.
Triple K.
Thank you. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Showing you an exhibit that is marked KKK. Actually, if you could take a look at that, just kind of peruse it and tell me whether it's a document that you might recognize.
Yes, I recognize this.
Okay, is that exhibit KKK
Oh,
the
God,
Long's
me too,
records
Bassett
that you
Page.
were
I've
provided by
actually
the
gotten
District
lost
Attorney's
since this
office
one
that's actually
started.
contained in this box that you mentioned?
That's correct.
And did you review that and consider that before your testimony that you gave in this court today regarding this case?
Yes, I did.
And did you make any notes as to your review of that document or, frankly, any other documents that you were recently given?
No.
Okay. And when you gave testimony on the subject of drug use and history and so forth, whether or not Ms. Clarkson had a recent problem or a remote problem with...
All right, this is hilarious. I just literally went to Twitter to search Dong Olympics, and the first top tweet under top is Jay's. And I showed this on Sunday also, but yeah, here for anybody that has not seen it, check this guy out real quick. You guys ready? Look at this. Boom! The bounce off that thing. No, the recoil. Boom! 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 He broke the bar with it. Look at it. It pulls the bar down. Look at that. Oh, all the way up to his stomach. Jesus Christ. Boom, and the bounce in his pants. It's like it's a fucking ball, like an actual ball. Not just a dick and balls. Jeez, dude. He's got a hammer hog on him. Look at the whole girth of that son of a bitch, dude. Fuck. Worked his whole life for this moment. Boom! Damn.
Substances such as drugs or alcohol. When you came to those opinions originally, had you had the benefit of this prescription drug history?
No.
Okay, and with reference to this particular history, would you consider and take
why wasn't it strapped down?
Sort of.
Why's that thing out and about like that? That thing's about to take on all the parents.
By a person, prescription or otherwise, and the amounts that they take over a period of time.
Yes.
Okay, and would the same be true of alcohol? In other words, if somebody were having a drink of alcohol for the first time and they're versus somebody that maybe drank more regularly, would the alcohol affect them a little differently?
Yes.
Okay, and would the same be true
of blessed man.
drugs like Vicodin?
Yes.
Okay, and what is it about the regular use of alcohol or drugs that makes a difference as far as its effect on persons?
Yeah, it's called tolerance, and basically, like Mr. Plord is saying, tried alcohol for the first time, you only want to start with a small glass or small sample, and otherwise you can get quite ill, obviously, if you drink too much for the first time. But after time, if you become a regular drinker, let's say, and have maybe a drink once a week, and then you move to twice a week, your body starts to adjust to it. Because you know the euphoric feeling or calmness that you might get from it, or you might get irritated from it too. It can work the opposite.
PubliclyBuzzed likes the dongs.
Bottom line is
shown
your
some
body gets
dongs.
used to it. It's like taking a shower. You jump in the shower.
Equal opportunity. We've
and,
shown some tits as well now.
How you get used to it. Someone might get in there with you and say, hey, this is too cold for me, but you've adjusted to it. The same concept applies to the medications or drug use. And that's called tolerance.
Okay. And let me ask you, with reference to alcohol and Ms. Clarkson, did you know or learn
Ronnie in the house,
from any
what's
of the
up?
records, setting aside for the moment any of the recent records that you reviewed, what her regular use of alcohol was?
She was what she defined herself as a social drinker.
Okay, so that's what you accepted as correct, isn't that true?
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you a hypothetical question,
This is true.
Dr.
This is
Pena,
true.
with reference to that last subject, and that has to do with social drinking. If a person could consume, let's say, 14, we'll just pick that number, 14 shots of tequila, in other words, in one sitting or event or so forth, would that be, in your view, a social drinker?
Well, you know what? It's hard for me to judge because some people can do that, and I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. So if somebody had the ability to consume that much, would that be within the realm of social drinking to you? And let's say in an evening or at a particular event.
Objection. It's beyond the witness's ability to answer that.
Can you answer that question? Do you
No,
have
I
the
cannot.
expertise? The objection is sustained.
When you looked at Ms. Clarkson's medical file, you made a mention that there were some doctors that tried to get her off certain medications. Did any doctors try to get her off the Vicodin medication?
I don't recall Vicodin.
Okay, and you testified that basically as far as the level that was in Ms. Clarkson at the time that the blood was taken was within the therapeutic range. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that mean that you are certain that she was taking it for therapeutic reasons?
That I don't know.
Okay, and would one way that you would know is whether or not she was taking it in a prescribed manner?
That's correct.
Okay, and
shriveled up.
sometimes with
What if he's a
reference to
swimmer?
patients, sometimes they get prescriptions and they basically take prescriptions that are not
I was in the pool.
according to the label. In other words, they may get a prescription for something, but they take more than they're prescribed.
I know about shrinkage.
Speculations beyond the expertise.
Do you have the expertise to answer the question?
No.
The objection is sustained.
Doctor, when you looked at the medication records, which you received recently, did you look at the prescription records for Ms. Clarkson within the last year of her life? In other words, during the preceding months, let's say up to a year before her demise?
Yes.
Okay, and did you see any prescriptions for Vicodin hydrocodone?
Let me just confirm that.
And you're looking at Exhibit KKK, I take it.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm looking at this exhibit KKK. And
Maybe we should have skipped
here's one
that
here in March 2002 through April 2002. That's a prescription for the hydrocodone or Vicodin with the Tylenol. And there's another one, there's a number of them that go all the way from March of 2002 all the way to August of 2002, all the same. Let me continue a little bit. If you back up in time a little bit, go to February, I'm sorry, let's go to January now of 2002. And it seems to stop at August of 2002. That's again just the Vicodin for the jurors, I'm sorry. And that's all I see for that.
Okay, the last one being in August, is that correct?
Yes.
And basically, let's just pick out a time
Megan,
period.
coming
but
to the
let's
door
just
late.
look
What's
for
up?
April.
Super
Is that-
late.
You're looking
About
at
to end it.
individual
Oh, man.
prescriptions, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, thanks for coming through here,
for
though. Hit that
April of
like ski.
2002,
Had a good night. Be worth a replay.
Basically,
There's
there's
some
a
dongage
record
that
for
just went
50
down
tablets on
in the last
3rd of
10 minutes
April,
or so.
50 more tablets on the 10th.
Dude had a hammer hog on him,
Another 50 tablets on the 18th.
bouncing around.
And that basically,
And a lot of this fucking dude,
as far as
Plord,
Vicodin,
Plord,
that covers April. Is that
Christopher
correct?
Plord.
I'm sorry, the last part of your question?
Actually, the most entertaining thing was probably Cutler fighting Judge
Those are
Dowhart.
all part of the prescription
That'd be worth
records.
cutting out.
50 tablets on the 3rd of April, another 50 on the 10th. These are all separate prescriptions. That the first one was 50, the second one was 50. There was another 50 on the 18th prescribed, and then actually on the 30th, another 50. So that's all documented in the Long's records for April. Is that correct?
Yes.
And during that very same month, she's given a prescription for Paxil. Is that correct?
Let me find Paxil.
Hammer hog.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon recess. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind the
free this
admonition
man
we'll
for
see
the
at 1:30
lunch.
this afternoon. Thank you.
All right, Sunday, where are we starting? Let's see. Probably a long one, I bet. An hour with Dr. Pena. Part 11 of 16. We're getting close. We're working on it. Holy shit. What another amazing night. This has been incredible, guys. Thank you all so much. Yeah, wow. Craziness. Next time you will see us will be Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, like I said, Friday is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be doing Feral Friday will start at 10 p.m. Eastern Time that night. So, yeah. Today, basically, Christopher Plord and the defense team of Phil Spector was trying to nail down that Lana Clarkson was trying to kill herself or wanted to kill herself and would go as far to take the gun from Phil Spector, who clearly probably brought the gun into the play to begin with because of what we already know. I don't know what their exact full play is on this, but that is where they're angling with this clearly with Dr. Pena, and Dr. Pena's not having it. I don't think Judge Dowhart's having it. Of course not. And Alan Jackson also. Yeah, interesting arguments. Be worth going back. Anybody that didn't see Cutler and Judge Dowhart getting into it a little bit there. Cutler literally isn't even listening. Not even listening. He's just fucking spouting off at the mouth, trying to earn whatever pay that Phil Spector's giving him. I don't know. Crazy. City Kitty coming through here. What's up? What a crazy night, though. Thank y'all so much. Everybody came through and supported. Appreciate the shit of it. We've got another wheel already in play that will probably commence on Thursday. So good luck to those folks. We got some more winners. We had some more shirts go out. Shiraz, get at me with your details. Carly, I got your details. And yeah, the next wave after that will start commencing soon. Well, absolutely amazing night. Everybody that comes through here, we do have a killer crew here in the Murder Church. That's all I know. And I feel like I'm forgetting something. But I don't know what it would be right off. I'll see you Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's go. Love you guys. Have a great night.